Hi, I'm BJ, and this is the Arcane Alienist Podcast.
Hey everybody, how you doing out there? I'm back. All I got today really is a recap of my last home game session. So I'll just I recorded that earlier, so I'll tack that on here in just a second. Otherwise, be sure and check out. We've got a recent episode of Nerds RPG Variety Cast. Jason's kind of back for August to do RPG a day, but he also uh, put out a movie review with me and him and Merc the Meek. I'll put a link to that episode of the show description where we talked about the new movie, the new Spider-Man, Brand New Day movie. Excellent movie, probably one of the top superhero comic book movies in a long time. It's going to be at the top of my list from here on out, definitely. So check out that review. But go see the movie if you haven't. What are you doing? It is definitely one that unless you just hate going to the movies, at all, this is one it's worth going to see on the big screen for sure. All right. With that said, I will just queue up my pre-recorded segment here.
It's time for a recap of my D&D with theater kids as they explore the sandbox setting that I've called the Valley of Azhug. So, where did we leave off last time? We're actually working through Horror on the Hill. They had kind of explored part of the hill and had come upon the monastery, which is the kind of the gateway to the bulk of the adventure. They had learned from the two old women, the Fae, who were kind of appear as elderly women that just living in a cottage in the woods. That that it's inhabited by goblins. They suspect that they may be associated with the goblins that they had faced in their early adventures. This seems to be a place where it's a goblin stronghold, according to the old women. So they decided to go back to the monastery and look around. They got one random encounter on the way. It was giant killer bees, but they pretty much took care of them without anybody getting hurt. Just kind of a little speed bump on the way back to the monastery where they were going to go last time until one of them got hit by a ghoul and paralyzed, and they decided to call it a day and go back to the cottage and rest. So they return. They find, and again, this is more spoilers for Horror on the Hill. They find that the monastery grounds have this a stone wall around it, but it's mostly tumbled down, so it's just piles of stone. But there's a wide gap on one side where they can enter, and there's a grove of trees there right as they enter. But they do see, as they kind of pass by the wall to the south, is a small building kind of built into the corner of what would have been the barrier wall, and to the north some sort of overgrown garden. But there's also steam coming up from the far end of the grove, so they go to see what that is because they discover another steam vent there. So I rolled a random encounter for that for there. That turned up with a random encounter, and they did get an encounter randomly rolled, and it came up to that it was supposed to be an ogre. But I've kind of played around with the mythology of my setting. So the originally idea was I had ogres. They've not encountered an ogre, by the way, but I had ogres as being a type of goblinoid. The idea here is that goblins just keep growing and growing and growing and growing. They start off as goblins, and they grow into hobgoblins and into bugbears, and then eventually into ogres. But I decided I want to save some of the traditional folklore of ogres as kind of being man-eating, kind of cursed creatures, something separate from like an evil fairy. So, keeping sort of the place of ogres, I just decided to call these giant goblins Fomor. They have the stats of an ogre from the rules, more or less. But I'm just going to call it. This is a fomor. It's the biggest form of goblin. But for those of you familiar with D&D, it's statistically, in terms of the numbers, it's an ogre. They decided to investigate the steam vent. They find that there's this 10-foot tall goblinoid creature on the other side. They can figure out what it is because they've heard of these, even if they've not seen one yet. And in the distance behind it, beyond where it is, they can see a mausoleum. So, a couple of the players kind of hide behind the trees while the others approach. It's a surprise encounter. It was surprised. So it jumps to its feet and it picks up its large club, but it doesn't attack because the reaction roll was more uncertain. So I asked them what they're doing there. The one character, the ranger who speaks, Goblin, says, "Oh well, we're just looking around. We were curious about where the steam comes off the top of this hill we saw, so we came up to kind of figure out what's going on." So the Fomor tells them, "Well, this isn't a place for humans. You need to leave." And they're trying to figure out, it's not hostile, but it's obviously not just going to let them walk around. But they do refuse to leave and start to kind of say, no, we're going to stick around. So they kind of purposely agitate it. And it's standing on the other side of this steam vent that's 5 or 6 feet wide. And I'm like, you guys would have to probably make much of an effort to jump over this, but this thing can just hop across it with its almost regular movement. So they get it to charge them. It leaps over this steam vent. It's about 60 feet long, but it's only 5 or 6 feet wide. Jump over it and come at it, and they manage to take it out pretty quick. I mean, they are at this point third, fourth level characters, so they did take it out pretty quick. And I rolled. This was the best part of the encounter. So I'm like, okay, what's the thing got in its loot? So we rolled for some random loot. It's just got a handful of coins, a few gold and a few copper. But it said to roll one minor magic item, so I rolled a minor magic item, and I came up with a cursed shield. And so, okay, well, it's got this shield. It's obviously too small for it to use. It just kind of had it in a bag with these coins. And it's got a frowning face on it, kind of a sad face. So like, oh, well, that's interesting. I said, but you could tell, they could tell it's magical. So the paladin character takes up the magic shield. It's okay. Well, your armor class now improves by 2 because it's a +1 shield. And they go on about their business. What the curse was that I rolled that I didn't tell them was this is a shield that draws all missiles in the vicinity, friendly or hostile. So they go on up and decide to check out the mausoleum. The door is carved, and in the module it's supposed to be carved with like some sort of demon or monster. Well, I say it's carved in the image of a saint, but it's been defaced to look like some kind of monster. So they push the door open, they go in, and it's this large room, empty room. There's a statue in the middle, and then there's 12. There's like 12 doors in there. They're obviously doorways into individual tombs. And in the center, there's a statue of the saint, and its head's been knocked off. It's laying on the floor next to it. And it said, this is Saint Matan, which is in the mythic world of Erd, sort of this I call it the bear saint. He's this big, kind of strong, silent type, was always kind of loyal and there to protect the little people and the friends, kind of a saint associated with the woodlands. A lot of rangers follow this saint. So, that they think, okay, well, let's see what's in the tombs. So the 4 of them line up they're like, okay, we're going to go 1, 2, 3, and open the doors. And the way the module is set up is if you touch the statue or any of the doors, all of them swing open. So at the same time, they pull 4 doors open, but the other 8 also open. It's supposed to be skeletons, but because this is a little more powerful group than the module is, I think, originally designed for, I upgraded them to zombies. So now they've got a zombie shambling out of each tomb at them. They kind of trade blows on a round of melee before. We've got a cleric, and we've also got a demon hunter in the group. They both back-to-back cast turn undead, and both of them succeed. One of them, the first one who does it doesn't get all 12 zombies in the effect, but then the other one follows up and gets the remainder. So all the zombies are now trying to back up into their individual tombs, so the party's able to kind of go into each tomb, surround the zombie, and overwhelm it without much trouble. And then for their trouble, they do find a magic dagger in one of the tombs. So they exit the tomb. I roll for another random encounter and get 3 rock baboons. So I say, okay, well, there's these rows of pillars outside the tomb on the map, and so I'm like, you come out, and the party's surprised. So they get ambushed by these trio of large baboons that are throwing rocks at them. And of course, we all joked about, what else are they going to throw? I never got a chance to work into the baboon flinging poo, but I thought maybe they'd resulted that if the situation kind of seemed appropriate, but it didn't last that long. Okay, so the paladin and the ranger are in front, and I'd almost forgotten about the shield. So we kind of rolled diced off to see who was going to get the third rock. The paladin gets 2 rocks thrown at them. The ranger gets 1 rock thrown at him. The two rocks actually going at the paladin miss, but the one going for the ranger, I rolled a crit, which I do max damage because it's swords and wizardry. They don't have that much hit points, so we just, to kind of allow for the fun of a critical hit without it being completely breaking, we just do max possible damage. And it's 3 points because it's thrown rock. And I said, okay, well, this third rock, you all swear it is going right for the ranger's face, and at the last possible minute, it zigzags over and hits the paladin. And not everybody's really listening. They're like, what? Well, at that point, a fighter that's kind of in the second rank, they haven't closed gap with the baboons yet. She's like, well, I'm going to shoot them. So she, looses off 2 arrows, and I'm like, well, they go straight for the paladin. Then they figure out, oh no, this paladin is cursed. And, cursed weapons are supposed to be, you can't put them down, but cursed armor and shields, at least the way I read the table in the Swords and Wizardry book, is that's it. You can't drop it, as only applies to the weapon. But I kind of split the difference there and said, okay, well, it's stuck to your arm. You can't just put it down. And I was going to say you can't put it down in combat. I want to work the curse that way. So everyone charges the baboons with melee weapons. The creatures also have these wooden sticks they use as clubs they fight back with. They have deal with the baboons, and 2 people grab onto the paladin and 2 people grab onto the shield, and they're able to pry it off the arm. However, then they realize that, okay, well, if the paladin is actually using this shield, no one else can shoot at any of us with a bow or a thrown weapon or a sling. So the paladin's like, well, I'm a paladin. I'm here to protect everybody else. I'm going to keep it. So even though they pried the shield off, they took the shield back up and are going to see how long that works for them, because it gives them a really good armor class. I mean, you still get the benefit of the armor class, right? It's just all the missile fire is going to come at you. So next they head to explore this overgrown garden. It's overgrown with thorns and brambles so thick that nothing other than like little animals like squirrels and rats and stuff could actually get in there. But they do notice that there are 3 places where it's the little halfling fighter that notices, made the kind of secret doors roll, that there are 3 places where these shrubs are actually cleverly concealing some tunnels that have been sort of chopped out and cleared. And they don't know how big the tunnels are, but they can tell that they're not big enough for a human to walk in. A human would have to crouch real low or crawl, but the halfling can walk right in. So she draws her sword. Somebody gives her a lantern so she can see, and she pushes into the first little tunnel. And immediately there are 3 goblins in there, because there's 3 goblins actually hidden in each one of these tunnels. So she surprises them, and also blinds them because she's got this lantern that she's just brought into the dark. They scream, cover their eyes. She, readies her sword to fight with them. Everybody else hears this scream outside, and as the screaming goes off, so you get a picture. There's 3 of these things along the sort of the eastern wall of the garden, evenly spaced along the length. So they're on the southmost one, kind of at the bottom of the map. And so what I had happen was the ones at the top of the map, at the northmost. 3 goblins then pop out with bows and start shooting at people. So a couple of the people rush up on those goblins, and they run right past the space in the middle. Well, I'm like, okay, well, surprise, there are goblins in there, and they shoot at you too. So they take a little more arrow fire, but they go ahead and close the distance and deal with those goblins while the halfling, and she's a pretty scrappy fighter, you know, fourth level fighter, and has got a magic sword, so she makes pretty. Usually, she's the one that actually kills the most monsters. She takes care of these three goblins her own. The rest of the party deal with the three that had come out with bows, and then manage to deal with the ones that are still hidden in the behind the shrub in the middle space. But it's not like you can go in. There's no maze of tunnels in there. There's just three cubby holes that had goblins waiting in ambush. So, they're a little more battered now. They've fought with, the Fomor and the zombies didn't really do much to them, but the baboons and the goblins have done some damage to a few of them. So they decided, well, let's go check that structure near the south. So again, I roll for another random encounter, and as they kind of get halfway there, roll some more baboons. So some more baboons pop out from some trees and throw rocks at them. That fight doesn't really have much. They took care of the baboons pretty easily without taking any damage. They get to this small structure that's built into the kind of the southwest corner of the grounds. It turns out to be an abandoned guardhouse. There's nothing in there. There's some tables and chairs, some dilapidated bunk beds. They do find a nest of giant centipedes under one of the beds, but the reaction roll for the centipedes was not hostile, so they decided to just leave it alone and not cause any trouble. So then at last they decided it's time to head to the monastery, the proper monastery building, which is kind of in the northeast section of the grounds. It's where they really wanted to go. They were just poking around the smaller structures up till now. So they make their way there. It's kind of a diagonal across the grounds of the monastery yard. Another random encounter halfway, and it's supposed to be a dire wolf. But I thought, well, we got goblins everywhere, and I'm trying to upgrade the monsters here a little bit. This is a basic module, but they're in that transition from basic to expert level. And so I upgraded it to a warg. So it's warg springs out. It completely surprises them. I rolled a die to see which one it jumps on. It jumps on the demon hunter. Tears into his arm, does some damage. That's the surprise round. They roll initiative. The warg wins initiative again, gets a second attack, and does some pretty serious damage before they're all. Once they get to go, there's enough of them. They're again able to just surround it and kill it. So I said, okay, well, you kill it, but as it dies, it lets out this great, horrible howl. And they're like, oh, great, now everybody knows we're here. So, not wanting to just walk into the monastery with people being on alert, they run away, and they decide we're gonna kind of backtrack and then try to sneak back into that guardhouse and just barricade ourselves in there for the night and use up our healing magic and sleep a little bit, and just start fresh again the next day if we can make it through the night. So they kind of make sure nobody's following them. They get in there, they barricade themselves in, they set their watches, and I rolled, if there was an encounter through the night. There was one, and it actually turned out to be, I rolled direwolf again, so again, this is going to be a warg. And so I'm like, I think it was the demon hunter, guy playing the demon hunter, it came up on his sort of shift on watch over the night. I'm like, you hear something outside scratching at the door. So he kind of wakes everybody else. It's like there's something out there. Well, our paladin's holy sword, actually, the random kind of ability I had rolled on it was it can provide X-ray vision if you just kind of stop and concentrate. So they use the power of the sword to look through the wall, and they see that there's a warg sniffing around. It's sniffing where they've come and gone from this building now, but it's trying to scratch and it can't push through the barricade. So they just kind of are really still and quiet till it wanders off, and they kind of go back and finish their rest in the night. No other encounters through the night. Passes uneventfully. So that's where we are. Next time they're going to, I think, head into the monastery. I suspect they'll get through that pretty quickly, and then get into the dungeon below to begin exploring the dungeon. So I thought they'd get to the dungeon this time, but they you get some teenagers around the thing, and they get excited, and then they get distracted, and then there's side conversations. So, which never happens with adults, never, right? But no, we had a good time. So that's where they are. It was sort of a nice set of just sort of some random and some embedded encounters that were already in the module. and they got to see a variety of creatures and kind of survived, but were never, there were a couple times where it was like, oh, I'm about to die. They really had to manage their resources and then ultimately retreat because we sort of, ground them down through the course of those encounters. And I was worried they were just going to try to risk the monastery. I think the last time they tried something like that, it went really bad for everybody. So they've kind of learned, hey, we've kind of burned through our spells. Everybody's wounded. We need to back up and find a place to regroup and start over. So that's where we'll pick up next time in a couple weeks.
So there you have it. What do we get into next time? Well, we're supposed to play again as of the time I'm recording this here. Hopefully, just in a few days. I've got to confirm enough people can make it to hold a session, but we'll see what happens. In the meantime, be sure and check out our Spider-Man Brand New Day review. Again, I'll put a link in the show description. And until then, wherever you are, till next time, wherever you are out there, take care of yourself and make someone happy today. Thanks for listening to the Arcane Alienist podcast. The music you're hearing is Come and Get It by Scott Holmes Music. The cover art is by Dave Bone. Be sure to check out his stuff at ironseer.com. You can leave me a message. I have my SpeakPipe account linked to the show description. You can also send me an email at arcane.alienist@gmail.com. Just embed a voice memo, or I'll just read the text to your email during a future episode. Once again, thanks so much for listening.